Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And
I love that we live our lives now like that old Verizon commercial. I mean, at least the podcast life is, can you hear me now?
how epic was it when that guy switched and became a spokesperson?
Sprint, like on the sinking ship too. Sprint was like already, I think, the least popular of the carriers at that point. And yeah, him and Yellow just thumbing his nose. Like, but imagine that's your job at that point. You are a cell phone spokesperson. So you just got, it's the only thing you know how to do is cell phone speak. You
Well,
just got to go find another one.
What I loved was he was so pigeonholed or typecast as the Verizon guy. It was the equivalent of Jared being the Subway guy. There was no chance of him ever getting acting work anywhere else other than Verizon until his agent said, I've got a bright idea. We flip this thing on its head. We will get, I mean, this is going to be the biggest campaign. I'll get you double what Verizon was paying. You'll never be able to work again, but you were never going to work again anyways.
Would you like to see Jared Fogle come out of prison and get rehab and go to Jersey Mike's and be a Jersey Mike spokesman?
No, I do not advocate for that. I advocate for him staying in prison where he's at.
My cousin did a yard or two in the prison Jared Fogle was in.
Oh, really? Did he interact with
Yeah.
him?
I don't think he did. I don't think that's cool to interact with the Jared Fogles in prison.
With known pedophiles?
Yep. They're called chomos there, in case you want to know. That's your child molester. That's your vocabulary for the day, a chomo.
I could have gone my whole life without knowing that.
Yeah, now you know, chomo. But it might be important when you get to prison in case somebody calls you a chomo. Then you're supposed to fight them.
Or if anybody calls me it anywhere when I'm not in prison.
Yeah.
So I think I told you at one point, I feel like we had this conversation on air. I had a friend who worked as a marketing exec for Jack in the Box. And she told me that Jack, who plays Jack on their commercials with the giant head, so you can't ever identify who the human being is, but they employed the same actor to play that guy for years, and they paid him $400,000 a year.
Which, though, I mean, I'm going to have to say that was totally money well spent, because a student of fast food, I'm a fast food lover, you know that.
Yeah.
I have a large spot in my enlarged heart for fast food. And I would study, I love the Jack campaign, for a long time, and would perpetually study his hands. And if I would have seen different hands on that Jack, I would have said, wait a second. Those hands were always like perfectly chubby. They were always the same hands, and I could tell that.
Do you think that he had a forced diet of Jack in the Box to get his hands that engorged?
Based on his hands, I would have to say yes.
I think so too. So the idea of swapping campaigns for the Verizon to Sprint guy would be the equivalent of Stab Magazine reaching out to you and being like, hey, Chaz, what's the number? Come over to the dark side, or maybe it's the light side, actually.
It's the light side, I think.
Yeah. And we're going to do this campaign that says we're way better than Beach Grit. What's the number?
Oh, man. How much? It would have to be enough where I could break off how I'd say, does this have to be a legitimate number? I guess it'd have to be a legitimate number. I would say.
I mean, let's say, okay, let me outline it a little bit. It's a 6-month campaign that just essentially is designed to tear down Beach Grit. So that Beach Grit actually goes out of business. So a 6-month campaign about how Stab is the best, Beach Grit sucks. I don't know, you even tell inner workings of Beach Grit that are going to ruin its reputation for anybody who once loved it.
It would have to be
6 months.
This is crazy talk here, but it would have to be like $10 million. $10
million.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see it being worth it for more than that, to be honest.
So would you turn to Derek in negotiations and be like, hey, Derek, I'm going to break you off $3 million and I'm going to take $7 million?
No, I'd break Derek off half. I'd say, hey, Derek,
okay,
we're each getting $5 million here. This is a business decision. I would feel we'd probably take, I don't know, maybe we take 3 each and break off a pot of 3 to the Beach Grit person who like I would feel bad about leaving him high and dry too. So he'd say, hey, the first X amount of people who email in, who we know, like you email in with your handle and we'll break you off 20 grand. Thanks for
What
the good
about,
times.
I don't think, I think you got to go through the archives and or go to Discus and figure out who the
Who
top
commented the most.
100, yeah, who the top 100 commenters are. And
Yep.
they each get the 20K.
Negatron would get 100,000 at least.
Yeah.
Negatron might even get 1 million. Might have to be more than 10 mil. Might have to be 12. I wonder what it would be worth it. I mean, Stab doesn't have money anymore. I can't imagine. But
they do now. They're premium subscription.
Oh yeah, they're rolling in it. I've often wondered how much Ziff, like, if it ever crossed his mind, I could buy these guys and shut them up. The problem is it gets more expensive and more silly the longer it goes, where if he looks back and says, when I first came into this game, I saw this little gnat beach crit. I felt it buzzing around my ears from time to time, and I didn't pay attention to it. It's silly stuff, paying attention to that kind of thing. You know, nobody cool does that, or nobody powerful does that. It's just, you know, these are the plebes, the little annoyances that you deal with. If he doesn't look back and thinks, man, I could have probably bought them and put them out of business for, you know, a couple million back then at the start.
Easily.
Yeah.
Do you think he even cares? I don't even think we're on his radar. Like, I don't think he's caught up in surf gossip to even care.
No, but I think it pops up on his radar enough that he's been very furious about it. Like, not regularly. He's not up on the day-to-day kind of gnat-like buzzings, but the times that Beach Crit has really roiled them, he's been in the room furious.
I feel like unless it affects their business, and I don't know that they have a metric that shows that they're losing sponsors because of something you said.
But I think with, like, for example, with telling the world that Zeke Lau won, that was a major headache. Like, the Beach Crit has caused major headaches for them. Not like, I don't think dip in, you know, necessarily that they can measure a dip in anything, but revenue or, you know, whatever. But yeah, the headache alone.
See, I wouldn't want to, I guess part of me understands, yeah, I'll take the 10 million bucks and walk away, but I would prefer to continue working. So I'd prefer a scenario where they just fold me in. Like, here is the payout. And then either you run your entity kind of with our objectives, or just come and work for us and run our entity.
I mean, there's still a, I think some people in the Beach Crit universe believe still that we are a negative shill for the WSL. Like, I got multiple both DMs and messages and then comments on Beach Crit about how much you're getting paid to post Ultimate Surfer stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Where they think you guys bring this negative stuff, but it's still all, you know, as the adage goes, no publicity is bad publicity. So you guys are spinning this negative thing and but you're always driving eyeballs or driving people toward the WSL. So
So not only are they not that savvy, they're not even savvy enough to understand that that's true.
I mean, I think that they might at this point understand that it is true, that without a Beach Crit, like specifically, sorry, Nashville, Tennessee, loud cars here. I think at this point, especially as it relates to the Ultimate Surfer, who would be talking about it or watching it otherwise? And I think they're scrapping for any eyeball they can get on it, right?
Yeah. Well, Felipe Toledo's dad definitely doesn't understand that premise. But before we get to Felipe's dad, well, let's talk. I do want to talk about the Ultimate Surfer. I know last week you didn't watch it. Have you watched any?
No, but we had on Dirty Water, Derek and I had Anastasia Ashley on yesterday. So got some more insight into the machinations of the Ultimate Surfer.
Did that episode air yet?
Her getting booted?
No, her Dirty Water episode.
Oh, no.
When is it going to drop?
I don't know. Derek is not as tech savvy as you in terms of getting these things up.
I know I had a conversation with him on the phone. Did he sort out the tech issues? How's the audio sounding?
I don't know. I think it's sounding better, but I think it's still rough. I mean, this Zoom thing like that we're doing now is never as fun as an in-person, and never sounds as good either, right?
Yeah, why I was pessimistic that the audio for Dirty Water wouldn't get improved was on the phone call that he and I had. I could barely hear him.
Yeah.
I'm like, what'd you say? I missed half your
Yeah.
sentence. Like, where are you right now? Like, if we can't even get a phone call working, what are the odds that he could do a 3-way with Anastasia Ashley? No pun intended.
Yeah, I really do think that, I mean, God bless Derek Riley. It is clearly not in his wheelhouse to do that stuff, but he will like put his head down and really try to fix this tech stuff.
So
Yeah, hopefully it gets better.
What I realized was he bought that interface that I use at Album, and he was asking me all these questions about how to do things remotely, and I was answering all those questions, but then I realized he's trying to run them all remotely through that interface, and that interface is really designed for in-person stuff, so I don't think it'll help him with the remote stuff.
Yeah.
At any rate, tell us about Anastasia. What was her experience? Can you spoil Dirty Water?
Yeah, I can spoil Dirty Water. I can tease Dirty Water. Ooh, this will be a double tease. What Anastasia is the best at? Anastasia, it was the only person on that show. I haven't watched the show, so can't say this definitively. But from the little I saw and what I know about Anastasia, the only one who's sort of savvy about her persona. Anastasia has been doing this for a very, very long time, right? And so she knows what to play, how to play it. She knows she's playing to an audience, that she's not Anastasia Ashley, the person Anastasia Ashley, when she's on in front of any screen. She is an avatar, basically, right? Or a character. So, for them, I thought to allow whatever the stuff was that allowed her to get kicked off the show is a disaster for Ultimate Surfer. You need that person. You needed Anastasia on until the very end, right? You need a villainess. She's happy to play the villainess. You need somebody to create any kind of drama. She's happy to create drama for the viewer. And so the fact that she got booted, to me, is a disaster in the design of the show, which basically she said, coming onto the show, I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a mix of stuff, like a mix of, it wasn't all just going to be physical surf. We are going to pick the best surfer. Clearly, I'm not the best surfer, Anastasia says. I haven't surfed competitively for, ever. And these girls, a lot of them are surfing competitively today. There's no way I can beat them. I could beat them if there was a different sort of challenge metric set up sometimes, right? Like I could beat them in mind games or in blah, 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 blah. So to me, it's a real, again, it's a disaster of the show that the most interesting people get kicked off because you're actually looking for the Ultimate Surfer out of a pot of people who none of them, even the best of them, Zeke Lau, arguably belongs on the CT, but is not an Ultimate Surfer by any stretch of the imagination. And the fact that you're trying to, like, it's a disaster of show design. Like Dana White, for all his genius, designed an idiotic show. World Surf League should have known better and stood in the gap there and said, wait a second, these surfers are subpar, really at best. And so let's make this a show about, who knows? I mean, you could have had priority as an idea of what makes an Ultimate Surfer an Ultimate Surfer. And so, what's a priority thing you had to do on land, something real tricky, something where you had to stab somebody in the back, or stuff like that. Like, it should not have been about the physical. She always about the physical. She said she was surprised how it was basically only about the physical. Also, another spoiler for Dirty Water, which I thought was interesting. She said the show was so physical that they would become exhausted every night. Every night after it was done, everyone was so exhausted that they were too exhausted to socialize or hang out. Which, of course, that's where you're going to capture any kind of drama. When everybody's so exhausted from the dang surfing they're doing in the pool or rock running or whatever, and they all go to bed, where are you going to get any spark or drama or juicy gossip or anything? So again, I don't know how the creators of the show didn't know better, but it seems like major overlooks, which is why it's been a disaster show. The disaster of the show is not the premise necessarily. The disaster of the show is how they've carried this thing out.
Yeah, they're stuck between the idea of wanting to be the Bachelor or have like actual scandal going down between the couples or between the males and females, and wanting to be a surf specific show. The surfing isn't good enough. The surfing's actually bad. by the way. Like
Yeah.
straight out, I've watched every episode. I've seen every wave surfed. The surfing is straight out bad. Zeke Lau ripped one or two waves, but even those, they were like, if it was a CT event, those would be 5-point rides, you know?
Well, I mean, she talked specifically about that too. I won't spoil that one. You have to listen to Dirty Water for that. But she had a very, very interesting take on that and how it totally kneecaps the show.
Because of the way they edit the wave?
No, tune in to Dirty Water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they do edit the wave really, really weird, and you can't even tell what the complete ride looked like. But I mean, so the surfing is bad, straight out. It's also in the wave pool, which we already have covered what all the criticisms of that were. So I think the solution for what you're saying for the design could have just been to put them on the North Shore in the wintertime, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, there's plenty of drama there, and there's plenty of parties where people will be hooking up, they'll be doing drugs, they'll be making bad decisions. And then of course you wake up in the morning and pipe's 8 feet. And then if
it actually looks terrifying.
Totally. There's all the drama is inherent. You don't have to design anything. You don't have to script anything. And so that would have been a super easy solution where they could have gotten both things. They could have gotten people hooking up and catfighting or whatever those shows go for. And then also the ultimate surfing, because you're at the ultimate wave on the planet. The other thing is there was no chemistry between anybody on this show. Like Bruna Zahn is married. They've all known each other since they were, under 10 years old. Yeah. And they've traveled the world together. So there's a familiarity chemistry, but there's no sexual tension. And so that's a completely lost premise from episode 1. And then you also realize that the idea of an ultimate surfer is a lost premise from episode 1 as well, because the surfing's atrocious.
One thing that I think about the whole thing is the pool, Kelly's pool, not wave pools in general, Kelly's specific pool, Surf Ranch in Lemoore, California specifically. I think now they've run through every iteration of failure with it, except for, so it does not work as a competition spot, right? Like they've even given up on that themselves. I mean, it's not on tour next year. It'd be hard pressed to see it coming back for any CT tour event, right?
Devin is going there in 2 weeks to run a longboard event. We totally let him slide on that last week, dude.
It's so true. It is so true.
I mean,
it's going to be awful.
I know that personally he sides with you and I, and if we call him out on air, he's going to have to toe the company line. And sure. I just figured let's just dodge that completely. But I mean, that's the last act of a desperate world surf league is doing the longboard event there. So
it's awful there. It's awful as a set or background for any kind of thing to watch. So the only thing it's good for, and I think it does, I don't know what the cost of running, but I hear that it does, it either breaks even or makes money as a place for rich people to take their friends, right? It's the $50,000 a day or whatever that, so that's what it is.
What I heard is it's $11,500 operating expense a day, and they rent it out for $55,000.
So they're making money on that thing. The problem with that is, so they can continue to make money, which they only ever, early on, they said this is only a test facility, right? It was never really supposed to be seen by the public or whatever. So the fact that they couldn't make any more, but there is more Kelly pools coming. I think there's one coming to Palm Springs sooner than later. Yeah. And so once that happens, once people don't have to go to Lemoore anymore, I wouldn't be surprised if they shutter the whole thing. If they just turn off that one, they push to other Kelly technologies elsewhere, and that's it, right? Where at that point, I haven't been to Lemoore in a while, but Anastasia said there's like now industry built up kind of around the pool and the tourism it draws in. Do you absolutely gut Lemoore by leaving? Does the World Surf League act as like a real awful interloper who came, took, and left?
I'm worried that's what they're going to do to the championship tour. I mean, ultimately we gripe about the shortcomings of the championship tour and bad decisions that are being made. And it's not because I want to complain about stuff. It's that I envision 5 years down the road, Dirk pulls out they've driven it off into the ditch and created this farce of a culture that we don't relate to in any way. And then when they've bankrupted, they go, okay, well, we're out of here. We're going to go work somewhere else. And you and I are sitting here going, no, this is the thing we love. Now the tour is completely unviable. Nobody will step in because it was losing so much money for so long. And the culture is corrupted. Where do we go from here?
You know who's going to step in? My new friend, Fernando Aguirre. He'll be right there.
Willie, what's the story?
I think so. Fernando reached out to me on my latest that World Surf League, or that the World Surf League, I had a rumor, like a real rumor from an inside source, that the World Surf League and ISA, International Surfing Association, who International ISA is the governing body of surfing as far as the Olympics is concerned, right?
Yep.
The WSL is not. So the WSL was used this last year, or for this last Tokyo Olympics, as a basically a qualification mechanism, right? Like you could qualify through the WSL or through the World Surfing Games. So, you know, but whatever. Each country has 2 surfers, or 2 men, 2 women maximum. So the countries who don't have any surfers on the WSL, they would qualify through the ISA World Games, right? Is how it goes for Olympic qualification. Anyhow, rumor that I heard was that the WSL and ISA only had a 1-year deal in place for the WSL to be qualifying. So, and that Fernando, head of the ISA, was thinking about or pondering the idea of having a side tour that would qualify surfers for the Olympics, right? Which would mean now there would be an actual Rebel Tour, more or less, happening. So I printed this rumor. He reached out to me and said, absolutely not. This is a complete and utter nonsense. Please take this down. And then he and I, but he, great sense of humor, felt like he really understood the beach grit way of, you know, we went back and forth and said, okay, Fernando, you got to feed me good gossip from here on out. But Fernando and I have an understanding of it. Yeah. So that it was not true, that ISA will be working with the WSL moving forward on qualifying, or that'll be the part of the qualification mechanism moving forward. But I felt great in the back and forth with Fernando. Fernando's a surfer. Fernando's been involved in surfing forever. And if this thing does end up in a ditch, I would love to see Fernando, because it will continue to be an Olympic sport. You know, it's not, here's hot gossip right here, or a hot rumor. It's not officially, surfing is not officially set for Los Angeles yet. But it's looking that way, or they're moving through the proper, you know, format. But let's think about here. We have surfing in Chopu coming up, the Paris Olympics. That's guaranteed. Los Angeles, very likely, and Brisbane, I don't see how it's not. And so for the next, you know, what is that, 12 years? We have Olympic surfing, which means there will be some form of tour. So if the WSL drives into a ditch, I'm hoping Fernando saves it.
There are a few. First of all, we've learned through the last year and a half that we don't actually need a tour. Like, we're, in terms of getting surf content in our lives and watching the sport excel and kind of progress, we don't need the tour for that. I like having contests because I like watching them, but I can live without them. And whether or not there's an actual coalesced full year-round tour that crowns a champion, there'll be individual contests anyways. Stab's been doing events. They did one last night. Red Bull's done events throughout the years. Vans would continue, I'm sure, to do events. And then if Fernando had his own thing, that's plenty of content for you and I.
I mean, and I think the temperature is actually right for a Rebel Tour to actually pop up, right? I think there's enough sort of, I think you could do a pared down, you know, if somebody had a little bit of money, a pared down 4 events a year, literally best surfers in the world, best waves in the world. I mean, you know, you couldn't really get the best surfers, but you know,
you could.
Again, I would,
if you had enough money, you could.
If you had enough money, you'd have to, but even without all the money, I think you could still, I would love to see a tour with like a pared down tour with like a Noah Dean on it, or but Noah Dean rips, right? And he charges. And to throw him at Cloudbreak and in a contest format that wasn't strategy and all this, that was really about sussing out who can surf the best, right? Would be pretty fun.
Here's, I think the objective of those things is that you keep the focus very specific. And Red Bull has done that very well. You know, they do the Cape Fear event, and the focus is we are going to challenge ourselves against this crazy slab. And then Stab Magazine with the Surf 100, it's more similar to what you're talking about. We're going to take 3 surfers, throw out the format, and just let them go surf with a crowd at this venue when the waves are pumping, and we'll deem the winner based on, who we like the best, essentially. And so what the World Tour or the WSL, it's gotten so large and convoluted that it's now making a lot of the decisions for bureaucratic and economic reasons that have nothing to do with putting the best surfers in the best waves. And so to us as the end user, it's like, it's convoluted, and we make exceptions for them because we know that they have to make money, but when you start small and you keep that focus very specific, you can justify, you're not going to be comprehensive. You're not going to appeal to everybody, but you're going to say, we have Noah Dean because we want to have a badass free surfer. And then we're going to get we're going to have Adriano because we want to have this super competitive guy. And let's see how those guys go head to head. And we all get that objective. It's about having a focus. I feel like the WSL's focus is just so diffused over the years.
It would be fun to see like an original. I mean, I think we've talked about it before on the show, but the original how MMA, or I first experienced MMA, was, a ninja versus a boxer, or a kickboxer versus a judo dude, or a sumo wrestler versus a whatever, right? Where if you stuck in totally different styles of surfing, like, and had them fight, like Noah Dean versus Devin Howard, right? Like,
that'd be amazing.
Who would win that heat? Would be really, really fun. Yeah.
Man, I watched UFC 1 through 5, and it was actually, I don't know if all 5, but certainly the first couple were actually on network television, like NBC on a Saturday night. And Hoist Gracie was smoking everybody, and he was 180 pounds. And there was, like you said, there was a sumo wrestler, and the sumo didn't make it past his first round because the way that they did it was Hoist had to fight 5 times in a night.
Yeah.
It was, if he beat his guy, he would then work his way up the ladder, like finals day at lowers. And the sumo guy didn't make it past his first round, but he got kicked. He went up against a kickboxer, and the Stefan Stuttgart, I think was the kickboxer's name. And the kickboxer leg chopped him. So the sumo guy fell to his knee, and then he landed a shin to the sumo wrestler's mouth, and his teeth went flying into the audience. You could see it. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And by UFC 2 or 3, some guy had another guy laid out, and he was just punching him in the nuts as hard as he could. And I think they realized that they needed at least a couple of rules. Yeah, a little bit of a format. It was incredible to watch, though,
Ultimate surfing, though, that's what I want to see. I'm going to make that. So it's going to be the Beach Grit Ultimate Surfer.
So I've got another thought about the Ultimate Surfer. Did you see, I don't know, I probably shouldn't name him, but there was an industry kind of bigwig executive from the last 20 years who posted on Instagram. And the reason why I saw it was because Eric Logan linked to it in his stories. So I clicked over, and he was basically saying, hey, all of you haters out there, why do you guys hate the Ultimate Surfer? This is a great thing, doing a great thing for this community of a bunch of surfers who we've all known since we were kids. These Kai Bargers of the world, or whoever, have a second chance. They have a second opportunity through this platform. It's embarrassing to see all of you guys naysaying and making fun of this show that you should just be enjoying. And the comment section was lit up with applause. Koa Smith, Anastasia Ashley, all the cast were in the comments saying, hey, thanks so much for standing up for us and saying something kind about the show. And I was like, I was embarrassed to read it. I fully understand why that guy felt the way that he felt, but it's wrongheaded, and it's a completely, we feel good that Kai Barger is getting a second chance, but the reality is those industry executives of the 90s and 2000s built something great that I grew up in, and it kind of became how I experienced surf culture. And that existed for a period of time. Kai Barger got his chance. Luke Davis got his chance at being a pro, and actually was a pro and made good money in that thing. That thing fell apart for economic reasons and more reasons. It fell apart. And Kai Barger or Luke Davis could choose to leverage their social profile and continue a career if they wanted to. For whatever reasons, they didn't. We don't need this kind of version of what the Ultimate Surfer is like a B tier, C tier QS in a wave pool. So we don't need the worst thing of that industry that you guys built, a QS version event in a wave pool to let these people vie it out for a B or C list spot to regain some semblance of spotlight. Like, that's not good for anybody. It's not a great showcase of surfing. It doesn't actually elevate those guys in any way because they're not going out there and earning it like a pipeline or something like that. And it's also a bastardization of our culture. These things that they're doing, the tandem paddling, the spin the bottle, all of that isn't actually a reflection of our culture in any way, shape, or form. So do not defend this thing. This thing is an abomination and an embarrassment. And it's not a second hand up for these people. Like, if you look at the way that Dana White ran the UFC's Ultimate Fighter, he would have laughed somebody out of the room who didn't come in throwing haymakers and trying to knock the other person out. The only people that made it through that show were the Ultimate Fighters. They left blood on the canvas and they knocked people out. And then they went into the UFC and became world champs, lots of them. Dana White would not have gotten on Instagram the next week and been like, hey, those guys that lost and actually didn't show up and didn't leverage their career from 5 years ago, pat them on the back and give them a blue ribbon. He would not have done that. And that's why the UFC thrives, is because he doesn't make these concessions and these accommodations.
To me, it shows a complete out of touchness for any sort of executive to say that this show is actually where a good surfer will come from. And that's the point of it too. Like, the point is that it's a reality show. It follows Bachelor in Paradise. It's a reality show. And the true fact is you gave them a dog reality show. It doesn't make any of the surfers look better. It doesn't make any of them, they're not going to get marketable out of this thing from getting back on tour and winning. Kai Barger's done, right? His career as a competitive surfer is over. That's fine and good. It's not supposed to continue. You could have, if you would have given Kai a show that made him look interesting, if you would have wanted that, or more to the point, a Luke Davis or Anastasia Ashley could have easily, with a better show, gone on to some kind of television career, right? Like, they're great to look at. They're funny on camera. And you didn't give them that either. What you gave was a show that nobody's watching, clearly. Like, it's tanking now even more in the ratings. It's losing all of its lead in from Bachelor in Paradise. And the last episode was had the lowest ratings of all, right? So you're losing audience. You're not captivating people. I mean, at some point soon, or probably the next show or next episode, it will slip down below 1 million viewers. And so what? You're giving something, once it slips down below 1 million viewers, now you're giving a show that Beach Grit is smashing.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm so upset. Like, a part of me is like, why am I watching this? Why am I getting so enraged by it? But ultimately and then I think I'm just getting older and more cynical, and I need to do positive things and just shut all this off. But ultimately what I think it is that bastardization of the culture thing. It's like, God, honestly. So it'd be one thing. I don't know if I said this to you last week. Somebody actually DM'd it to me and it just rang so true, which was, if TLC was doing a show on surfing, that'd be one thing. We could just look at it from afar and be like, oh, those people who know nothing about it are getting it totally wrong. But the fact that the WSL brought this to the table is the offensive part. That's the offensive part. It's like, these are supposed to be the arbiters, not only of, partially of our culture, but also of like the best surfing in the world. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And they brought the exact opposite of all of that. That is a bastardization of anything that I knew when I was growing up, or any of the people that I valued, the kind of icons of the sport. This flies in the face. People would be turning over in their graves,
Well, and to for the World Surf League to call it straight face, the best surfers in the world. These are the best surfers in the world. Like, really, really, really diminishes their. I've already said it. It diminishes their own brand. Yeah, it's so weird.
Credibility. Yeah. I'm upset. Okay, Felipe Toledo, give me the rundown on what happened.
This is such a great surf story, right?
It is. I felt the exact same way.
This is peak surf, right? This is vintage Beach Grit, peak surf, I feel, is
This is what, and here's why it is those things, is because when you go surfing, this is what happens. And when you go to the parking lot and you run into your friends, this is what you tell them. This is the
precisely
stuff that you discuss, you debate, and then they have, no, I saw something different. And then, so it's a reflection of surfing is what this is.
Exactly. So yesterday afternoon, I got a all caps text, not all caps, but like a lot of exclamation text from a source who has delivered in the past, right? It is somebody that I don't know who this person is, but this person has dished up good, verifiable gossip before. Gave me the story of Felipe Toledo in the lineup, had been burning locals all day. You know, people get mad. Felipe is obviously at Lowers, yeah. Felipe, obviously, number 3 surfer in the world, so will be at the Lowers event. The finals day, will be surfing in heat number 3 against the winner of heat number 2, who will be the winner of heat number 1. Anyhow, so Felipe is clearly there, you know, getting his reps in. But I guess he was burning a bunch of people, according to this source, right? Which is the best, and this source wasn't even on the beach. That's the best part. This is secondhand, but from somebody legit that he trusts. I trust this person trusts this person. Anyhow, rumor had it that Felipe was, you know, dropping in on people. A set wave came, this local junior who's some hot up and coming thing who is unnamed, paddled for this wave. Felipe, from the way it sounded to me, so Felipe, he was paddling. Felipe paddled and was taking off behind him to highline around him. But this kid was already, you know, in position. So rude move. Kid knew that Felipe was going to highline. So highlined up as well, grabbed Felipe's wetsuit, held on the entire ride. And at the end, they got into a huge scuffle. But apparently the huge scuffle was mostly just yelling at each other, right? I don't think punches were thrown or anything like that. Kid ordered Felipe to the beach and Felipe went into the beach. That's the story I have. Now,
did Felipe go into the beach to fight, or just because like he got sent in?
He got sent in, but also could have been over it, right? Like it's a hassle out there, bored, done with it, et cetera, right? So
it ruins your session for sure.
Precisely. So Felipe goes in and leaves. I put the story up, right? It's a funny surf story. It is a complete someone saw something happen surf story that all the best surf stories are. Now, Ricardo, Felipe's dad, gets on Beach Grit's Insta, furious, piping hot about how this did not, in fact, happen. This is why everybody has blocked Beach Grit, because Beach Grit peddles lies and, you know, went on a funny tear. And then the whole thing, you know, back and forth. And I've heard now multiple versions of what happened, sort of. I still trust my source's version of it. From everything I've heard bald-faced lies from some people. I've heard, like, it's funny, it's really connected in there, right? Like, so something happened. I don't exactly know what. I will stand behind the version that I published as an accurate representation from a point of view of what happened. But yeah, peak surf right here. We're living it, David Lee.
Yeah, so a lot of the comments in the comments section were like, whether or not it happened yesterday at Lowers, we booted him out of uppers 6 months ago, or Margaret River, you know, and there was all these other stories of similar things happening with Felipe, which I'm not surprised by at all. Like if I was in Felipe's position, I would probably be burning people too. I'm trying to get my wave count up. Look, I'm a professional. There's no court for me to practice on. This is it. I'm here to make money and get out of my way.
You're watching lesser than surfers butcher waves all day long,
totally.
Right? Imagine Felipe is out with you or me watching us like kind of bog rail and like
totally
fail at cutbacks. And then, so of course, if I was Felipe, I'd say, I'll get so far out in front of you on this wave that you can drop in too. Drop it behind me, man.
Or I'm just going to rip it so hard that you're going to stand in awe and watch, you know, like whatever the reason is, he's justified to do what he wants to do. And, and so I don't even see why he would even argue against doing that. And again, there's a bunch of evidence that he's been doing it for a long time anyways. But here's exactly what Ricardo Toledo said on your Instagram. He said, impressive the amount of shit you talk to earn likes and move the ridiculous articles you post. This is a tremendous lie. It never happened. And the worst thing a media can do is spread lies on their pages, and you are experts at this. Congratulations. That's why I and everyone around here blocked you. Poor article, poor spirit. So if he had blocked you, he wouldn't have been able to see the post, first of all.
Yeah.
But
I love
it's
how
like,
people pointed that out.
I know. And so I understand that. Here's what makes a great story too, is I understand every single angle to this.
Sure.
I understand why Ricardo feels the way that he feels and why he's publicly defending his son. I would do the same thing for my son. I understand why Felipe is burning everybody at Lowers. I understand why the local Grom, young junior at Lowers, took the stance he took. And I'm pretty proud of him for going toe to toe with Felipe and sending Felipe in. And the fact that it worked, Felipe went in. I understand every single side of the story.
And it's so like nobody, it really truly is. I'll say it again, peak surf, because, Felipe going in, for example, sure, Felipe could say, I wasn't sent in. I went in because I was over it. It was a zoo out there. I had my waves. I was done anyway. Kid can say, I sent Felipe in, right?
Yep.
Which one is true, right? Like kind of in the best surf story, and not that this is a best surf story, but a peak surf story, all sides are true, except for the one thing that I would argue against Pip's dad, Ricardo, is that it was not a lie. Something happened for sure. It was not a lie. Maybe you could say your perspective is totally wrong, or this article only, posts from one perspective. This perspective was not the correct perspective, right? You can debate perspective all day. You cannot debate the fact that something happened. There was enough heat around that thing where something clearly happened, and someone will find, I'm sure, scrub the Surfline footage and find it. And we can all see sort of a pulled back version of something. But even then, we won't know what was said, how it went down, the sort of tension, the passion, all of it. But great surf story. Love it. So happy.
The other thing about his Ricardo is he's missing the point completely. Like, Beach Grit exists to elevate, will only ever elevate Felipe's profile. Sure. Even an article like that only elevates Felipe's awareness and profile. And you have to be able to leverage that stuff. The idea of being disgruntled and blocking is asinine.
Well, and that's where I really, it's rarer and rarer, but I always think that everybody should know what Beach Grit is at this point, right? And if you don't, it's sort of on you. That's why I really truly tip my hat to a Fernando. When Fernando reaches out and says, this is what you just published is nonsense, and then we go back and forth in a fun way. I've done this with, Matt Biolas and with Devin Howard, and there's people who get it, right? People who get this conversation. It's the surf parking lot conversation. This is, yes, I'm not trying to wreck people's career and spread lies. None of these rumors, it's rumor and gossip, and there's 90% true or 80% true, and whatever. And if you have, like with the rumor about Olympics and WSL was on the face true, right? It just wasn't true that, I was hinting that relationship may be broken and whatever. And yes, it was true that they did have a 1-year deal with the WSL, but in fact, they are renewing that or trying, moving forward. Line is they're working together, all this kind of stuff, right? But it's just surf gossip. It's ultra hard surf candy, man.
Yeah. And I honestly think Fernando might be BSing you by saying that you need to squash this rumor, because he could be working on that on the side. It's just not ready to discuss yet,
Sure, but Fernando's smart enough to play the game,
exactly.
Whereas a Ricardo could play the game too.
But I also understand
Ricardo played it even better though. Going on Instagram, on Beach Grit's Instagram, and popping off was like such a gift.
And it might actually be intentional. Like he might recognize everything that we're saying right now, and that it juices the algorithm. And so he's going to come in with the hot opposite take, add some juice. Everybody starts arguing with him. That elevates all of it. He is the most known surf dad in all of surfing. I mean, Carissa Moore's dad has been there from the beginning, and nobody knows his name because he's quiet, And so maybe Ricardo is just like, no, I'm going to be the one who you all know.
My time.
He's smart.
I mean, like in In truth, though, I'm curious. I mean, the lowers event now, the final day is what? The window opens in a week, less than a week,
Yeah, I think
theoretically,
it's the
or the
8th.
window opens. Yeah. So, excuse me. So yeah, I'll be curious if this event can keep some heat. What it does to Philippe? Does this fire him up, or does this make him a nervous little wreck?
You need to find the kid who sent him in, and he needs to become our new sponsored athlete for
This is a
the
funny thing
people.
too. I mean, yeah, this I have some information here, but it's not ready for release yet.
Okay, fair enough. So do you have any thoughts that you want to share about lowers before we go into it? We've been seeing clips of all the surfers other than Idolo surfing out there. Do you have any picks?
I mean, JP Curry wrote for Beach Grit today as a relapse gambler that he's putting his house on Gabriel Medina. He does not see Gabriel blowing a chance to win number 3.
Is he actually betting his house?
No, but
Okay,
I'm sure he's betting.
Good.
I'm sure he's betting the proverbial house.
I don't feel that confident about any pick.
No, I don't either. I would if I was forced to bet the wife's house. I think I would bet Idolo.
Yeah,
I think
I would
that
put a
Idolo can
little
get in
money
Gabe's
on
head.
Idolo.
I think Idolo. I mean, if I had to, I'm not confident at all. I'm definitely confident about Gabriel Idolo, but I'm not confident which one of them will win.
I mean, if I had to bet money,
Idolo's in a better spot.
I know I would bet Idolo. Like, look at Idolo's body lately. He is a freaking
ripped
monster, dude.
I didn't know Idolo looked that way.
He only has since he won.
It's like a body double.
It really is. Since he won at Pipe last year, like the very next day, he was posting gym selfies and like workout routines. And I was like, wow, he's taken it very seriously immediately after winning the world title while everybody else is relaxing. And he has not let up since. The guy is an absolute animal. So I feel like he's still on an ascent and we haven't seen the best from him. And so if I had to bet, I would bet on him. But
also the fact that he's second though, so he'll come up and have a ostensibly tough heat versus the number 3, the winner of number 3, right? So he'll have one under his belt. Lowers, again, we've said it once, we've said it a million times, lowers is not a taxing wave. So it's not like you're out there getting exhausted, surfing your heat. You're just warming up, right? Warming up, having a sparring partner, a great sparring partner before you take on the best. I don't know how that is not advantage Idolo all day, every day.
Agreed. And if there's swell, like if it's pumping swell, so there's plenty of waves and plenty of opportunities, Idolo, based on his cardio, will catch 30 waves in a heat. And I guarantee you out of 30 waves, he'll get 2 9.5s. He can get closeout sections and just throw something and he gets a 9. The way that the judges do the scoring, he gets huge scores for those. And so if he then gets a set wave where he can tee up and do 4 or 5, like he's in the 9 range, period. If there's waves, there's no, and I don't see Gabriel necessarily being better at that than Idolo is. And I see Connor falling apart under those circumstances. And I see kind of Felipe needs a proper long running right to get into that 9 range, and he will, and he can actually get the 10s, but Idolo is the guy to put your money on, I would bet.
I mean, oops. David Lee.
I got you.
Okay, sorry. I just got the 10% battery warning on the phone. Just FYI. So if I drop off. Yeah, I don't see, there's no way, no chance that I see Idolo losing to Philippe. And also, I see Gabe on the beach, furious, watching Idolo just sharpen his sword.
Yeah. Yeah, now that we talk about it, I'm going with Idolo. Watching the clips, Morgan Siblick really impressed me. He looks very complete, but he doesn't have that 9 and 10 point range that those guys do.
I'll hand it to the WSL. As goofy as the format is, and as it's not like if Gabriel Medina loses, then the best surfer of the year did not win the title this year.
Yeah.
But it definitely does make for something to talk about at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll find something to talk about no matter what, but that's on us, not on them. All right. Your battery's at 10%. We'll wrap up real quickly with Barrel or Not, but before we do, did you watch the Val documentary yet?
I haven't yet, but
All right.
it's on the list here in Nashville. It's like teed up, ready to go.
What are you doing in Nashville?
Daughter Ava transferred to Vanderbilt, which I didn't even know before this. Like the Vanderbilt, did you know how good a university Vanderbilt is?
No, not really.
It is the Ivy League of the South. I think it has like some 94% rejection rate. So it is like a top tier, fantastic university. She played for University of Arizona last year. Her coaching staff all left to go to Florida. I think coach was originally from Florida. So Arizona was going into a rebuild phase with a new coach on this. And Cersei, agent wife, instantly said, jump in the transfer portal. Universities had, or college athletes had a 1 year, like kind of COVID window where you could transfer immediately and play. Any other year, you'd have to sit out a year before you play. So Ava jumped in the transfer portal. She had a fantastic year at Arizona last year. So boom, huge interest. Vanderbilt wined and dined heavily. The university's so phenomenal. And they were SEC champs last year. So great soccer program, great school, great everything. So it was kind of a no-brainer. So transferred in, starting at Vanderbilt, crushing it. Yesterday I went to the game, 1-5-0. Boom.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
What a good supportive father.
Yeah. It's easy to support.
Well, we have listener calls that we should be doing this week. We're going to save all that stuff for next week. This is an abbreviated show just because of the distance. Lots of good feedback about Devin Howard. Also, the Florida Surf Film Festival took place this past weekend. Chaz and I were supposed to go. We ended up not going for separate reasons. They pulled off a one-night event still. It was a smaller event because of COVID, but they're back up and running. So shout out to that crew. It was very successful from what I heard. And we'll be back there in the future.
Cannot wait to be back at the Florida Surf Film Festival. One of the best surfing events around.
Totally. And then, so for Barrel or Not, one thing that Devin and I discussed, but really needed your take on, dudes wearing Uggs.
Oof. Are we talking wearing them at home, wearing them out of home?
Yes, I don't care.
I'm going to go Barrel. I'm going Barrel.
I knew it.
Going Barrel.
Devin said nah, and I was like, dude, they're pretty Barrel. Like,
yeah.
If you've ever worn a pair, they're amazing.
Of course, and they are traditional surf, right? They're OG surf stuff. It's not like they were this thing that chimed into surf culture. They're functional. Keep feet warm after surf, right? Yeah. They are arguably fashionable. I think the pivot to Tom Brady, etc., was unnecessary, and that kind of their fashion footwear they do is dumb. But I'm going to say Barrel.
I'm going to say Super Barrel, and they do have like probably 300 different products in their line now that are fashion or attempts at fashion, sandals, all sorts of stuff. I don't pay attention to any of that. Wear the high top, wear the OG high top boot, and also I've got a pair somewhere around here of the house slipper.
Oh, I have the house slipper, or I have had the house slipper.
The house slipper is incredible. Like, and I never had a need for house slippers before. I got this strictly unnecessarily, just like, well, I'm already comfortable without shoes, but I don't know. I think Lauren actually told me to get a pair. It's way better than being shoeless.
Oh yeah. And truly, I unfortunately need to break. I'm a big shoe wearer in the house. Wearing shoes in the house is gross. You're tracking in everything you tracked in from outside. It's a disgusting thing. I need to do better of having a pair of slippers by the door, kick the shoes off, in its slippers, off you go.
That's the thing. These are indoor shoes only. I never wear them outdoors, even to take out the trash. All right, good. So we're going Barrel. This is a non-sponsored segment.
Sorry, Devin.
Barrel on Uggs.
Sorry, Devin.
This one came from a listener, sunglass straps.
Ooh, I'm going no Barrel. No Barrel.
I don't envision a scenario where those are good.
The only time I will say a sunglass strap is good, and this is the only place it can be used, and it's a Barrel here, is sailing. When you are sailing and you are both crazily active and in heavy wind, losing your sunglasses is both very, very, very possible and a real big bummer. So
Man,
croquis on sailing is good.
I'm realizing all the fishermen that are listening right now too are pissed
Yeah.
because
But you're not, I mean, I guess if you're like fishing marlin and like crazy active, sure. So fishing, okay, if you're, I will say sunglass straps are barrel if your activity both requires sunglasses and those sunglasses stay on your face. But that's kind of rare, right? Needing
so
sunglasses and needing them to stay on your face, like requiring that they do. Where the ocean glare, that's an important time for sunnies, right?
I think it's totally okay to use something for function, but then as soon as you're off the boat and back in the car, you have
Take them
your
off.
yeah, exactly.
You can't,
That's where
and
the
you
problem
can't.
is for me.
Don't advertise your sailing, fishing, whatever deal with your croquis.
Exactly.
Don't
That
advertise outside. This is what I am.
that's where I have a problem, I think, is when I go to the grocery store in suburban America and there's a guy wearing camo, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like right now, it's cool if you're in the military or if you're a hunter, either one, but
Yep.
there's no place around here to do those things. So I don't know
Yep.
why you need me to know what your hobbies are. Like I don't care wear a wetsuit into the grocery store or carry a leash with me. You know what I mean?
The
So
only way you should advertise your surf hobby is by dressing head to toe in surf fashion.
why wearing Uggs everywhere I go.
Exactly.
Barrel or gnaw, colored wetsuits.
So Billabong does a great wetsuit program where you can design your wetsuit, right? I mean, it's a 3-2, whatever it is, but you design all the colorways. I had an opportunity to do this at Billabong. It's a great thing. I designed one arm neon orange, the other arm neon green, the body of the suit, and that panel runs all the way down to the leg on the side, and the body a kind of khaki green. So I'm going barrel.
Do people look at you weird or expect you to do air revs?
The problem is when I'm out there on it, I realize, oh man, I'm weird and I should be doing air revs. Tried to design the ugliest suit that I could. And when it came, I loved it so much and it's a fantastic suit. And so I wear it way too much. But I realized I, for example, cannot use that wetsuit if I'm ever going to ride my Devon Howard, I was going to almost call it a fun board, my Devon Howard mid-length. Like those two things don't go. I can only wear my weird shiny wetsuit if I'm on a simple board. So yeah, but I'm still going barrel.
I loved the days when you could identify the talent level of a surfer simply by what, you know, the wetsuit that they had on, maybe how they were holding their board. That still applies. But if there was somebody that showed up, are you losing battery?
No, I got you.
Okay.
Sorry.
If there was somebody that showed up in a white wetsuit, you knew it was either Kelly Slater or maybe Kalohe Andino. You know what I mean? Like those were the only two people that wore a white wetsuit. And if somebody did have a flashy wetsuit, you knew they were going to be doing airs and there was probably going to be a photographer shooting them. And so I kind of miss those olden days there, but they're long gone. So,
but I would like to see, you know, now that those olden days are long gone, it would be kind of fun to be in the lineup with just a bunch of fruity, you know, little Skittles out there just for a minute. We can all go back to black and later, but just a moment of Skittle.
the fact that I'm in all black, I'm going to be the one who's outstanding, you know?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bizarre thought.
Join up.
This is the world we're living. This is the world that we're living in now. Like me not watching the ultimate or not liking the Ultimate Surfer, complaining about it, all of that has just identified me as a hateful
old man.
I know it's sad.
Out of it. Yep.
Devin's lighting up our text messages. Are you seeing those pop up?
I just did. That's what I turned over for, but I didn't read them.
It's about Stab 100. He's saying there's a blood feud. Biolis is mad. Oh, I think Mason Ho won the event, the Stab 100 event on a Channel Islands board. He said he's giving you free advertising, and people thought that Mike February should have won, and Dane wasn't looking good. That's what Devin says. Boom.
Hot.
So Devin's on the show, even though he's not.
Love it. Always.
Are you going to be back in San Clemente for next week's episode?
I will. I'll be raring to go.
All right. I've got listener line calls about Devin and how much everybody loves him and a bunch of other stuff.
Can't wait.
All right, man. Enjoy Nashville. Eat some barbecue.
Thank you. I'm going to right now.
All right. Until next week, Chaz.
Bye-bye. Get barrel.
Bye.